This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland front of the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including FanDuel Sports Network without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. August is behind us. September is here. That means training camp is just around the corner. The NBA season is just around the corner. And that means we are going to kick off our NBA season preview podcast. But before we get to today's guest, I got to introduce my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Bad. I broke my wrist. Hi, everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, I have basically no usage of my my right hand, and I'm super frustrated. I'm in a terrible mood, but we're gonna recover in the form of Cavaliers conversation.
You know what? I feel terrible for you, buddy. I know that you were excited to get back on the horse or get back on the bike again and get some exercise. And you know what? Setbacks just pave the way for even greater comeback. So I believe in you. How long are you going to be in that cast, by the way?
This is actually not a cast. This is a splint. I see an orthopedic specialist tomorrow who will likely put me in a cast that I'm told is less cumbersome than the splint, which would be great. Because I couldn't even drive home from my urgent care appointment because I drive a stick shift.
Oh my goodness, that is just
so I had to call my wife never bothered to learn how to drive stick shift, so I had to call my mother-in-law to come trade cars with me so I could drive home an automatic transmission. It's been a day. When I put my daughter to bed, we always talk about our favorite part of the day. That's like part of the routine, and it took me a minute.
Well, keep your gratitude journal going and all that. You'll turn this around. But
yes, we will. This is my favorite part of the day now.
But here's the thing: we got a perfect guest.
Yes, we do. A great vibes guy.
A great vibes guy, but also, someone that's going to help us reignite the rivalry. Because, if we're kicking off season previews, what better way than to start with the team that the Cavs are going to start their season against and that we are likely going to see in the Eastern Conference Finals and are likely going to end their season at that point. Andrew Claudio from Knicks Film School joins us. Andrew, how you doing, buddy?
My man, it's good to be here, fellas. First of all, I'm now terrified for whatever kind of preview we do next year, because last year when you had me on, you had just torn your Achilles. This year, you just broke your wrist. So what's going to happen to me next year when we're doing this preview for the 26-27 season, where obviously we'll be previewing Knicks banner night after defeating the Cavs in the conference finals and then the Rockets in a rematch of the 94 NBA finals. Not that I'm getting into predictions too early. Regardless, I'm very happy to be here, fellas. Hope you've had a great summer outside of the last few days, Carter.
Yeah, it's been a great summer. Definitely a sad day, but what a world we find ourselves in, boys. The East has cleared. The sea is parted, and only each other are really in each other's way. How you feeling, Andrew, about the opportunity in front of you as a Knicks fan? Does it feel fun? Does it feel stressful? What are the vibes in Knickstown right now?
The stress hasn't come in yet. I'll say that. And part of that is so we're doing a series over at Knicks Film School throughout the summer for our summer content. We're going through the best 25 Knicks of the past 25 seasons. And let me tell you, it's been a dire 25 seasons, fellas. Going through those 2000s teams.
Did Landry Fields make the list?
No, but I'll tell you, the Jamal Crawford episode and the Kurt Thomas episode and the Stephon Marbury episode, it's been a lot of, listen, we just wanted to be competent. We just wanted to put one foot in front of the other from most of this century. And now you're in a place where I don't know who's predicting the Knicks not to at least be one of the two best teams in the conference, one of the top contenders in the sport. And so there's an appreciation for being in that conversation. There's the curiosity of, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, of a new head coach and what that could mean to their championship odds, whether positive or negative. And yeah, the Cavs obviously on our radar, not just for opening night, but here the Christmas Day game, fellas. So as far as I'm concerned, the vibes are hopeful and optimistic, recognizing that for the most of this century, the Knicks haven't had a lot of meaningless seasons where like the playoffs start April 15th, right? Or the season starts April 15th. We're ready for a season like that, where hopefully, knock on wood, everybody has good health and you just get to enjoy a very competent title contender.
So you guys are in the same boat then, where you kind of feel like there isn't a whole lot to learn from the regular season, or is it just or is that not the case? Because I think we feel like there's still a lot to learn from the regular season, but we understand that how this team's ultimately going to be judged is going to be based on the postseason. I assume it's more the latter, particularly with some changes and with a new head coach.
Yeah, it's exactly how you worded it. There's stuff to learn during the regular season. I just went through 5 years of Tom Thibodeau where you lived and died with the regular season. Like Washington on a December Tuesday, we're playing Jalen Brunson 45 minutes. Like, no, we're now prioritizing April and May and potentially June. And as a result, that will hopefully lead to learning some things about guy 10, guy 11, guy 12 on the roster that maybe will come in handy at the end of the season when you're trying to win a close playoff series on the margins. So while the regular season, like I think there is something you can learn from any time basketball is played during the regular season. I think I speak for all three of us when I say a great regular season won't mean much if it doesn't end in a triumphant postseason. And that's where a lot of Knicks fans and I imagine a lot of Cavs fans stand as we have this conversation.
Is it finals or bust? Is the season a failure if you don't make the finals?
They literally fired the coach that took them to their first conference finals in the last 25 seasons. And what's funny, like I told you about the countdown we're doing. Shout out to Jonathan Macri, my good friend and business partner, who in coming up with this bit said we're not including the 2000 playoffs, which was the last time the Knicks made the conference finals. It's not this century. The list is the last 25 seasons. It's the post Patrick Ewing era. So like Karl Anthony Towns ends up ranking pretty high. I won't spoil the list for people who are Knicks fans that might be listening to this, but in his one season, he made All NBA and went to the conference finals. Not a lot of Knicks have done that. And in that very successful season, you can't call last season a failure. The Knicks said, we're firing the head coach. Like, there's just not a lot of precedent for anybody or any team to fire their head coach in the first week of June. So I think the Knicks told us it's finals or bust in the way they operated and the way they made their decisions going into the offseason. And I have to take that philosophy. I recognize it's I will say this. If they lose a close series to the Cavs, I will be disappointed. I will then still be like, that was the other team that going into this season, if it's not us, it'll probably be them. If they lose to like Atlanta or Orlando or Detroit or a team before the conference finals, then it's worse than like a failure. It's like the blueprint suddenly is challenged. So yeah, it's finals or bust is the short answer.
Yeah, I think that's the floor for both teams here. Like, I think Cavs fans, the expectation is this team needs to make it an NBA Finals. Like, I don't think even an Eastern Conference close series would be good enough because, they won 64 games last year. I think they had a really good chance, to make the finals. And injuries were obviously a large part of that story, but I think there was also some immaturity that was shown kind of throughout that process. And you mentioned how there are still things to learn about the regular season. Are you a little disappointed with how the Cavs and Knicks schedules line up in terms of when they play each other? Because, you're probably not going to learn a lot from opening night. Like, there's not a lot of postseason relevance there. You have a second game, Christmas. I think that's going to be a marquee game. That's going to be a lot of fun. But then you only have one more game the rest of the regular season. We kind of already expressed this where we're a little disappointed that we're not getting kind of those late season matchups to maybe see.
I'm disappointed we only have 3 games this year.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that we only have 3 games, but I kind of assume both teams are probably going to be active at the trade deadline to at least see what's out there. It's possible that we see some changes. It's possible that, well, we already know Max Strus, which that news wasn't out there last time we podcasted, but Max Strus is going to miss a considerable amount of time with the Jones fracture with his foot. So, there's a significant piece missing there. A good chance Darius doesn't play in the season opener. Are you a little disappointed that it's not spread out a little more evenly, or that we don't get more matchups?
I think what Carter said would disappoint me more, that it's just 3 matchups. And look, it's just a fact of what the league looks like this year, where every important holiday slate that they scheduled, it's like, let's get this West powerhouse and this West contender, and then this like LeBron and Steph and KD and Jokic and Luka, and we'll get these greats from the West, Knicks, Cavs, and then we'll get this other West young up and coming team, and then this other West up and coming. Let's get Wemby in there.
I get that there's a conference imbalance, but to me, it's always a little funny that the West up and coming team that hasn't done anything will get that benefit of the doubt before, like, I know Orlando isn't sexy, but before a team like Orlando that's actually done something, right? Like, I get it. You're going to market Wemby. You're going to market some of these other guys. But that same standard doesn't always seem to get applied to the Eastern Conference.
As somebody who probably looks at ratings and downloads and what people are watching, what do you want to watch? Pistons Magic or Wemby against anybody?
Yeah, Wemby against anybody. Yeah,
it's just the reality of, like, you put your best stars out there. Unfortunately, for the Eastern Conference, I will say there is a Giannis erasure that I don't fully understand. Like, Giannis not getting your Christmas Day game, and this has been a constant theme for him, and he's complained about it. But regardless, I'm mildly disappointed. I echo what I said earlier, though. I don't think we'll learn much from those 3 games. And not to bring too much of last season into right now, I watched the Knicks go 0-10 against the 360 win teams last season, or I forget if Boston ended up getting to 60, but between the Celtics, and the Thunder, like, I watched them go 0-10, and that was the narrative the entire season. And then they beat the Celtics, and I understand how they beat the Celtics required some historic collapses on their part and historic comebacks on the Knicks' part, and then a tragic and terrifying injury to Tatum. But, like, suddenly the regular season meant very little. So if the Knicks go 3-0 or get a big February road win in Cleveland, it's not going to suddenly tell me that, like, I now know we own the Cavs. If anything, the only thing that matters in those 3 matchups is, did the Knicks win twice so they could have home court in the
tiebreaker, yeah,
right? Like, it's simply and solely a tiebreaker thing.
So you don't think that there's any relevance to the Cavs going 4-0 against the Knicks last season?
We'll never know.
That's a great point.
They never played each other. We'll never know.
Yeah.
If I will say,
I'm curious about your opinion, though, right? Like, I'm not asking to who would have won a series or whatever, but do you think that there was something there? Because obviously, even Mitch Rob didn't play in almost all of those games. I think he only played 1 game against the Cavs, and I believe he's actually the only Knicks player with a positive net rating on the court against the Cavs for the season. But, like, do you think that there was something there with that matchup that we saw in the regular season?
If I had to project, and both of these teams end up playing in the conference finals after the Knicks beat the
Celtics,
after the Knicks had just beaten the Celtics, I don't have to tell you guys, the run that the Pacers went on defied all logic and all spiritual interaction. Like, the way your team just suddenly forgets how to play basketball with a big lead in the last minute, just like, I know the feeling. The worst collapse in Knicks history, and depending how this run ends, maybe the worst loss that all of us are thinking about is that game 1 against the Pacers, which you guys have your own version, game 2 against the Pacers.
Yep. Yeah. We were sitting there saying, this is one of the worst collapses. I understand guys are out and Mitchell pulls his calf in the 4th quarter, but just how improbable it was. And then by the time the playoffs were over, there were 2 more. There were 2 less probable wins for the Pacers in that same playoff run. Like, it was unbelievable.
So it's hard to really project what version of the Knicks you guys would have gotten in the conference finals after having slayed the dragon in Boston. I will say it did feel like going into last year, and then as the season went along and they started playing Boston better as the season went, that they built a team to beat the Celtics. And then Tibbs like smartly switched up the scheme completely, and you got some 3-point variance in your direction that it felt like they were finally able to beat them. And then it just they ran into a team that was able to pick and roll them to death. And so like the Brunson and Cat defensive holes that present themselves, I think those would have been used up or significantly taken advantage of by the Cavs for sure. Now I have to turn it to you guys. Does the Mitchell Robinson thing still exist, scare Cavs fans? Like that, he did show his impact throughout the playoffs and like in a significant way to the point where he became a starter by the end of the playoffs. But is there still a worry about Mitchell Robinson?
No, I think he can present some issues, but I think what happened in that playoff series went so far beyond him, right? Like I like to joke that's the most heralded 9-9 a player has ever averaged. Like it wasn't even a double-double. But I think just how inept the offense was made those second chance opportunities by the Knicks feel so much worse, right? Like I think the lack of shooting outside of the core, Evan Mobley not really being ready. Donovan had a really tough series. Darius had the one bad game, but for the most part had a pretty solid series. There was just so many other things that went in there that I don't worry about it the same way. And it kind of ties back to what we talked about last year, which is that we felt the Knicks going all in, or in a way going all in for Mikal Bridges and kind of changing their identity. And hey, this is a team that's going to have a little less rim pressure. They're still going to be a good offensive rebounding team, but it's going to feel different. We felt like they were kind of going away from those specific pain points that really bothered the Cavs in that series. And then, when I was reflecting back on when we had you on to do this last year, the Cat trade hadn't even happened yet.
Yeah, that's right.
And, obviously that really shook things up. From my perspective, I went from being a very big Karl Anthony Towns fan when he was coming into the NBA, and then ultimately finding myself being so disappointed that he didn't live up to the potential I had in my mind that I turned into a Cat hater. And I certainly felt like in the matchups that we had against you guys, the ability with the Cavs being such a pick and roll heavy team, they really were able to go at Brunson no matter where he was. They were able to involve Cat in a lot of those actions. Evan Mobley was able to score. And I'm just kind of curious, how has your opinion of the team evolved since this time last year? Since, that moment in time right before the Karl Anthony Towns trade even happened?
Well, I'm trying not to make this a Tibbs thing, but they turned themselves into a team that was an offensive juggernaut, or on paper had the players and the personnel to be an offensive juggernaut. And from about New Year's on, when teams decided we're not going to guard Josh Hart anymore, at least not with a wing, we're going to put a center on him and put a wing on Cat. And then we're going to, if the Knicks want to take advantage of that with Cat in the post, fine, we'll live with that because then he's not shooting threes. And if we need to, we'll just sag off of Josh Hart. And if he hits 6 threes, great. We want their worst shooter taking shots. And the Knicks, and specifically Tibbs, never pivoted to like a Deuce McBride starting 5 or just any other look that really made 5-out matter. And they still finished like a top 7, I think, or 6 net offensive rating. From January 1st until when Brunson hurt his ankle in the beginning of March, that offensive rating was around 19th though. And like their schedule got much more difficult. They had the most difficult schedule in the NBA after January 1st. So the hope, and this informs my opinion, and when you're not bringing Precious Achiuwa back and giving Tibbs the 4 that is going to, for some reason, stand in the corner with his 11 3-pointers made in his career. When you're now prioritizing offensive talented players like Yabusele, like Jordan Clarkson. And then you bring in a Mike Brown who decided a couple of years ago with the Kings, we're just gonna run and we're gonna have the best offense in the league. And if you can catch us, great, but you're gonna have to outscore us. And that type of philosophy fitting the personnel of this team better. I say all of that and how I didn't love the fit of Tibbs and his need to figure out how to stop you, not outscore you, not being a great fit for this roster. And I recognize they were 2 wins away from the NBA Finals. There isn't that much of a leap they have to take. And I think a lot of Knicks fans are there, that it's like they didn't lose the Pacers series because of Tibbs and the way that this team was deployed, but they definitely didn't win because
it reduced their margin for error in a lot of ways, right?
In so many ways, you know.
How much? Because this is a question we have about our own favorite team quite a bit, which is how much is the the vibe of the team dictated by the coach, and how much is dictated by the intrinsic, under the first layer kind of instincts of the players on the roster. Something that Justin and I talk about with the Cavs a lot is that it feels like when things start to go awry, the guards just try, Donovan and Darius, their usage just tends to go up. And there's a lot of just spamming high pick and rolls, and the whole machine kind of tends to gunk up.
And normally Jarrett stops, making a lot of effort plays because he's not getting touches, and he's kind of the canary in the coal mine for those situations.
And when they get ball pressured, they start getting into their offense later and later, and the guards want to take a second and survey after they get bumped 10 times getting across the court. And as much as they changed their style last year and got better at that in the regular season, when push came to shove against Indy, those habits were rearing back up with a different coach at the helm, a different message. Is a Jalen Brunson team ever going to run? Is that really the way he wants to play? Is a Mikal Bridges, OG, Anunoby wing core ever going to be consistently getting downhill and putting pressure on the rim? How much of this is like the Scorpion and the Frog parable, where they're like, hey, this is who we are, man. This is what we do.
So the guys that you named, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, how many years have they played together?
3 or 4.
Okay. The Knicks, they were assembled a day before training camp. And so it's tough for me to fully say what everyone's habits are, because throughout the season, you're right in the sense that when stuff broke down, it just turned into save us Jalen Brunson. And because Jalen Brunson was the clutch player of the year last year, he saved them a lot of times. And it's partially why their record in clutch time is probably the only reason they got the 3 seed. That the Detroit Pistons had a front row seat after he stopped foul baiting to seeing how clutch he was throughout the playoffs. And look, it is a fair question to ask if a Jalen Brunson team is going to run. I would love to see what a Jalen Brunson team with 4 shooters at all times, or that crosses half court earlier than 16 seconds left at the in the shot clock looks like. And that is very specifically to your point about guys over time developing habits and going to their comfort zones. The only 3 people that were together for any of the wars that the Knicks had gone through in the 2 previous playoff runs were Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and Tom Thibodeau. And that was really their crunch time offense. When plays would break down, it's okay, we're going to use Karl Anthony Towns as a spacer, not get involved in the offense, but as a spacer. And we're just going to have everybody else stand around while we send Josh Hart and the center guarding him in for a screen. And then Brunson uses the screen to, take advantage of a center. Now, that is an advantageous position. Having Jalen Brunson being guarded by a center, it led to the Knicks winning a bunch of games.
Both our teams are very, very good at basketball.
Right. So who knew, right? But you see my point in how they're deployed. It's the only option was Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart pick and rolls. It's been a while since I've looked at it. I've tried to enjoy my summer as much as possible, but I'm pretty sure Josh Hart has more clutch time field goal attempts than Cat last year. That's just something that can't happen. Like, just you can't have the
unless it's against the Cavs and then he's going to hit it.
Then he won't miss.
No,
right, that's true. I love how I'm complaining about Josh Hart. I love Josh Hart. He is a playoff hero.
Teams would leave him open, and that was one of my biggest gripes after that series. Was he was hitting these contested threes and little step backs, and then Miami just ignored him, and he missed everything against Miami the next series. That drove me nuts. But it's funny because I hear a lot of parallels in what you're saying with what we were saying going into last year, where, the team wasn't, it had a lot of continuity the year prior. It wasn't just assembled right before training camp, but you had so many injuries at the start of the year, right? Like Darius hurts his shooting hand, finally finds a bit of a groove, then he breaks his jaw. Mobley misses a bunch of time. By the time they're back and rolling, I think they go 9-1 with Darius and Mobley back, and then Mitchell misses after the All-Star break, and then no one's healthy for the playoffs, and we're sitting there and we're like, maybe they can just with Kenny Atkinson, they can make their lives easier. They can play a little more up tempo. They can cross half court, but earlier than with 16 seconds on the shot clock. All the things you're saying, and I think I foresee a very similar journey for you, where it's, hey, we're changing up our approach to the regular season. Do these things still occur in clutch time? Because that was one of the things that I think minimized last year was, they changed their style of play in a lot of ways. But when it came to clutch time, that's when the guards, things slowed down a little bit. They became, the usage became a whole lot higher. Evan Mobley's usage rate dropped by, I think, like 15%. It was something crazy. But because they had the best clutch offense in the league, they had the most clutch wins in the league, and we're getting wins, we're letting the results kind of prioritize the discourse over the process. And I think that's going to be one of the things that'll be important with the Knicks too. It's, hey, you're playing this style, it's working, we're winning a lot of games because we're a really good team. When push comes to shove and things get tight, do we go back to our old habits? But I do think I like bringing in Mike Brown, because I think in a lot of ways there's some similarities with Tibbs. Both of them have primarily defensive reputations. I think Tibbs is a little bit more inventive at times offensively than he gets credit for. I think Mike Brown has shown a lot of flexibility. But one of the biggest differences to me is I think Mike Brown, he just seems like a better hang, right? Like he's someone that always gets along well with the media. I think he's really good at managing a locker room. I think kind of like Kenny Atkinson, I think he benefited from that time in Golden State and seeing the way that Steve Kerr, approached things. I just think a different approach to even a similar message sometimes can make a really big difference. And when Kenny came into Cleveland, as much as everything felt a whole lot differently, he even said, we're stealing, like we're doing a lot of things we did last year. We're just doing it in a different way. There's just a different level of buy-in. And I foresee that kind of being the way it plays out with Mike Brown and the Knicks.
So what's funny is I'm pretty sure when we had this conversation last year, I might have talked about how creative and how innovative it seemed like Tibbs was on the offensive end, how he was running these plays for Hartenstein, or running the offense through Hartenstein and treating him like Jokic and taking advantage of some Warriors split action to develop this great two-man game that Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein were having at the elbow. And he turned Dante DiVincenzo into Klay Thompson for most of 2 seasons ago. And then they gave him all these offensive weapons. And I think to your point, he never really abandoned the principles of like, I need 48 minutes of rim protection. Well, Karl Anthony Towns is your center. I need like a good offensive and defensive rebounder. Like we got to protect with our shell. And like, it was all these defensive principles. And on offense, it was like they were trying to get to the rim as much as possible. And it's like, well, you have a team that probably needs to play 5 out more often with your center not being in the dunker. You don't have Mitchell Robinson down there for most of the season. And he just never tried something new. And again, with all of that being said, they got to the conference finals and were 2 wins away from the finals. The magic word in New York this whole offseason has been the word collaborative. And I think that's really where the front office made their move. And it's that they probably were only going to be able to not fire Tibbs if he won the title or even got to the finals. and losing in the conference finals, they said, like, we've been suggesting all year that maybe they should make a starting lineup change. And he waited until they were down 2-0 against the Pacers to finally make the change. So, Jenny Busek, the assistant coach for the Pacers, remember when the Pacers ran that four corners, like football play as an out of bounds play? And then they asked Carlisle after the game, he was like, yeah, that's Jenny Busek. She put that in. There's none of that in the Tibbs coached team. He doesn't defer to his assistants. He calls all the ATOs. It's part of the charm of Tom Thibodeau is that he's a one-man playbook, and you live and die with that knowledge, but there's no collaborative effort. With Mike Brown, you can get all of the data and the analytics crews and the greatest assistant coaches involved in a staff and have more input. While, to your point, just borrowing a lot of the successful things Tibbs implemented over the last few years. Like, you could still go to Jalen Brunson in crunch time. You could also call an ATO that isn't just Jalen take a dribble and fade away. Like, you can do a lot of more creative things that might be in a second person's brain. And I think that's what we're kind of hoping is the minor upgrade. And to your point about margins for error, gives you more of a margin for error other than Tibbs doesn't have it. Okay, so we're just going to have to hope we win on talent and talent alone.
Yeah, it's one of those things that doesn't show up in the box score, but makes a much bigger impact than people think, right? Like, having tools at your disposal and not using them is insane, which is why I use Zoom AI Companion, because only you can do your best work. Zoom AI Companion can help you do the rest, like automatically taking notes, answering meeting questions, and helping you respond to your coworker. Available at no additional cost with eligible paid plans. Work happy with Zoom AI Companion. Carter, you almost got me to crack up there because I could tell you saw where I was going.
You are truly a masterpiece, a masterwork. Well done, reader, buddy. God bless you. I do want to talk. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about Tibbs. I do want to talk about where the Knicks roster is different this year. Famously one of the least deep rosters in the league last year. It was one of those chicken or the egg things where it's like, Tibbs isn't playing his depth, and it's like, yeah, they gutted all of it. It's like, I mean, I like Ariel Huckporty as much as the next guy, but it's like
name. That's such a good name for that.
Respect
spot.
Pacome Dadier. Okay,
like that was Justin's draft crush, by the way.
Hey,
but it didn't feel like they really had much, and we talked a lot about. I think we talked with you about how it's hard when you're in the middle of a roster altering shakeup like they had in trading for Bridges and Cat to all of a sudden rebuild your depth around it. We saw the Cavs really suffer 2 years prior against the Knicks in that playoff series with one of those kind of cobbled together benches where Danny Green on one leg is playing rotation minutes because he's one guy one guy turning into a pumpkin away from being in the game. And obviously the Knicks made some big additions to their bench in Gershon Yabusele, who I think Justin and I both love as a player. I definitely, maybe more so than Justin, love him. And then Jordan Clarkson coming off the buyout. Do you feel like they've done enough to make that second unit of, it's McBride, it's Mitch Robb, it's Yabusele, it's Clarkson. Is that enough?
I mean, it's tough to say adding an eighth and ninth man will be like the difference in 2 more wins. And that's the perspective I think a lot of Knicks fans are trying to wrestle with, because getting to that point in the mountain again is so much more difficult than I think a lot of Knicks fans realize. That it's not just we need to get 2 more wins. It's no, we have to get 12 wins again. Like, we have to get to 10 and then those 2 more wins, which is its own journey. I think it's, again, this isn't a Tibbs thing. And I got to be honest, for most of last year, I hated the minutes conversation around Tibbs, because I agree with you. I was not in favor of them. Like, let's have a cap on some of the better players and let's see what you got in some of these rookies. And can I tell you, the funniest thing happened at Summer League. I know this is a bit of a rabbit trail, but the funniest thing happened at Summer League, because I had to hear all year about how great the Knicks young players are, all these second round picks that didn't get to play a lot under Tibbs, how like Tyler Kolek is the truth and Ariel Hukporti just needs a chance, and Bacome Dadier and Kevin McCullough Jr., and they like got blown out in every Summer League game. Like, it was just the funniest thing to be at Summer League. And this roster of young players that every fan base falls in love with just has nothing to show for it. I wish all the Knicks young players the best. We're trying to compete for titles here, though. And to your point about like a one-legged Danny Green having to find an important role in the first iteration of this Cavs core four era, can I introduce you to one Cam Payne, who had to play the majority of the season, at times as their sixth man, at times as their starting point guard when Jalen Brunson went down. Yeah. And it's that's where your depth comes in, where if you want to now use this season, we're in a weaker Eastern Conference, and get a look at a young Tyler Kolek and give Jalen Brunson a less toll during the weaker months. As long as you're not sacrificing wins, but you're collecting data in the process, you then also have a Jordan Clarkson who has experience both starting and coming off the bench. Yabusele, he was like the one guy that I saw the versatility in he could play the 2, he could play the 4, and he fits right into that Josh Hart, Anunoby, Bridges, like 2 through 4 wing.
He adds,
room, you know.
Let's talk about Yabu, because he's a really cool player. And he just had a huge game today at Eurobasket too.
Yep.
You know,
scored
just
30. Yeah,
Cavs and Knicks having Saliu Niang and Yabusele make their mark on Eurobasket. Just perfectly even future NBA contributors right there. You know, I think Yabu is really interesting, because one thing I think your team really lost in the wake of the Bridges and Cat additions is you lost a little bit of the nastiness that defined the team. And like, you know, they call him the dancing bear for a reason. I mean, he's a super physical player, super versatile. What lineups are you excited to see him play in? Is it small ball 5? Is it just being a physical counterbalance to Cat? Like, what are you excited to see there?
So you just hit at it. The Knicks small ball 5, if he's your 5, you could technically play him with Cat, and Cat could go down to your 4. You have Yabu be your center. Now your rim protection still is whatever, but offensively, just I mentioned the name before. Precious Achiuwa played an inexplicable amount of minutes last season, and now the lineups where you put Cat and Yabu together, if you want to go full defense, and have him and Mitch and Deuce McBride in for Brunson for a stretch, with Bridges and Anunoby in there, those are exciting. There's a 5-out bench unit if Josh Hart is starting that you could go to. Although I guess Mitchell Robinson's it's Cat with the start with the bench unit that I'm more talking about, because that's honestly the only time we got to see 5 out last year would be when Cat played with the bench unit, and then it's him and Cam Payne and Deuce McBride and Bridges, and then like pick a fourth person, and Anunoby. Like, that's the only time we really got to see it. Oh, Landry Shamet, I forgot he existed. Like, you had those specific offensive heavy lineups that now Yabu can give you either as a 5 or as a 4 or as a 3 in different options. So there's so much versatility involved in. And look, the way the offseason was trending, I thought it was like, get a buyout candidate, bring Landry Shamet back, which ends up being Jordan Clarkson, right? And then hire a coach, and they're good. The Yabu thing came out of nowhere for me. So it's like, oh, we didn't just get an 8th, but we got a 9th man too? I didn't know that was happening. And they have another roster spot that I think is going to end up being Landry Shamet. So, like, these are the margins on championship contenders. Like, that you depend on your 8th, 9th, and 10th men to have a moment during your run. And I think Yabu is absolutely, look, go into last season, the thing he was known for was dunking on LeBron during the Olympics. And then throughout the season, before Philly turned into the dumpster fire that they were, I was mildly like, oh, they have a guy I want, though. Like, I would kind of love for that guy to be on my team, even though
we were in the same boat. He was
So
one of the
you
guys
get it,
that we
yeah.
wanted to get, and we were hoping that, Kenny Atkinson's connection to him with the French national team might have swayed him. But it's funny because everything you're describing with him also kind of fits into what we like about the Cavs adding Larry Nance Jr., right? Like exactly the same kind of lineup versatility and bringing that to the table with Larry, who obviously we have a lot of familiarity with. But I do like the addition of Clarkson. I think Yabu's going to make a big difference. I'm actually kind of interested to see all those former Utah guys, how they do in different situations. Because even, John Collins with the Clippers, everyone's like, oh, that's going to be so great. I'm like, he hasn't played like meaningful basketball in 3 years. Are you sure he's just going to be Blake Griffin now for the Clippers? We'll see.
I'm dubious of the Clarkson signing, by the way. That one, I feel like everyone's kind of penciling that in as a win, and like it might be in like when the bar is campaign last year. Okay, like I do feel pretty comfortable that he could meet that bar.
Hey, Landry Shamet campaign, dude.
Yeah.
DeLon Wright.
But I do think like you probably don't want him stealing minutes from Deuce McBride. Like you want him like firmly on the back end of your rotation. And I feel like people think he's going to like play a lot more than he should.
So,
because he can't play with Brunson, and he shouldn't play with Brunson.
And I don't think he. Well, so not even
so
against
who will
backups?
He play with?
Not Brunson.
He can't play with Brunson in backup units.
I wouldn't. I just. Okay. I don't know what you're adding there. Like. That's like.
I think it's fine.
I feel like that's some dueling banjos, except one banjo player is a lot better than the other banjo player.
If we see a minute of it during a Cavs game or even a Cavs series, it's malpractice, right?
No, I think
against the
it's
Nets,
fine. I think guard defense impacts overall team defense less than other positions.
I mean, if you better not have Cat out
Karl
there.
Anthony Towns is at the 5. You're insane.
That's where Mitchell Robinson, and this is the greatest wild card of all time, being healthy allows you to get away with a little bit more in your guard rotation. And that's where I'm hoping if Yabu ends up like him next to Cat is great. Him next to Mitch, I mean, it's fine, but this is where the backup units are more than just more of the starters. And that's more where I look at Jordan Clarkson in that addition. If he plays 10 minutes in a game and he was less effective, or 8 minutes in a game and he was less effective, that's fine. If he plays 20, because it's one of those nights where the bucket getter is getting buckets, I'm all for it. It's a minimum. Like it's a ninth man. And if they have another roster spot where they can add another player to potentially swap out, as much as I joked about the Knicks kids and their sophomores, like if Tyler Kolek supplants Jordan Clarkson, it's not going to be a seniority thing this year because it's a minimum contract. So I don't disagree with your notion, Carter, that Jordan Clarkson could end up being campaign again, where we just suddenly stop seeing him in playoff games. I think he's very clearly the ninth man on this team. And
that's
what you get out of him, the ceiling is so much more intriguing than the floor, because the floor is like, okay, you're out of the rotation.
The floor, I suppose the floor for that really, if you're looking at it through rose-colored glasses, the floor is if Brunson misses 20 games, we got a decent Brunson approximation for the minimum too. So like that's where your floor is affected upwardly, where it's not campaign starting point guard, Jordan Clarkson starting point guard, which you're not thrilled about, but if you have to survive it for a couple weeks, it's not the end of the world.
They go 11-9 in those 20 games, he will have served his purpose,
Yeah, we couldn't really relate to the whole summer league thing because we got Jalen Tyson, right? Jalen Tyson's able to fill in for Donovan Mitchell at the Garden, and give him 25 winning minutes, no problem. Like we've got the young squad coming up. What did you think of the Cavs offseason moves? By the way, like we're kind of breaking down what we think of Yabu and Clarkson, but obviously Ty Jerome no longer with the Cavs. Isaac Okoro moved for Lonzo Ball, and then bringing in Larry Nance Jr. What's kind of your read on the Cavs offseason from afar?
I tell you, I was staring at Lonzo as a Knicks option, and when they went to the Cavs, like, all right, that's a chess move because there's a chance we run into Lonzo. You want to talk about the ceiling with rose-colored glasses being intriguing. Him with the core four out there, him in place of one of the guys in the core four, him and Mobley together. My goodness, that has the potential to be a series turning move if you get the greatest possible outcome of Lonzo on the court. And then look, Larry Nance, the guy has, this is his second go around with the Cavs. Shout out to my good friend Sam Vecini, probably the biggest Larry Nance fan of all time, who speaks glowingly about him. It's a depth piece, and I will say this: between ninth men, or I guess eighth or ninth men, the difference between Larry Nance and Jordan Clarkson is advantage Cavs. I will say that. I do like the depth pieces that they made. I thought the Cavs had a lot of depth last year, though, which is what I keep going back to when I talk about their 1 through 10. It's that, look, I think we started this conversation the exact same way. We ran into the Pacers and we're just looking like, well, wait, what happened? We were the better team, had home court coming into this series, and then the deal with the devil happened.
Yeah.
So that not existing this year, now we might actually get to see what two teams optimized correctly and going at it happens.
Real quick, Justin, because I want to ask this.
Yes.
Cavs fans, I think a healthy percentage of the fan base, even despite the injuries, all the context in the world, I think the faith Cavs fans have in the team was shaken by that series in a way. Like the Pacers, and maybe it's all, residual scar tissue from the Knicks series a couple years prior, where they got, physically outworked in a series. They didn't, and they didn't hold on to their principles. They kind of abandoned their principles on the road to a playoff loss. And so you have a bunch of Cavs fans who are like, they're kind of shook up about like what this means. It doesn't feel like Knicks fans feel the same way, where they're like, yeah, Pacers went nuts, deal with the devil. Tibbs wasn't enough to get us over the top. Do you think it's just the Tibbs scapegoat that makes that different? Plus, it is also getting around deeper into the playoffs. A lot easier to rationalize a conference finals loss than a second round loss.
There's one other aspect to it, and I think you saw it with Minnesota 2 years earlier. They slayed the Dragon around too early. The Minnesota Timberwolves were a team built to beat the Nuggets, and they had that knockdown drag-out series. They dethroned the NBA champions.
Yeah, like us with Miami.
Denver.
Yeah.
Bingo. So, like, you won it in – you won – by the way, as a Miami Heat hater, that was my favorite series of the playoffs last year, and that included a series.
It was very.
It was a lot of fun.
Got to the conference finals, just laughing at Giancarlo down in Miami. That's one of my favorite things that the Heat were. And you add in the lottery play out. I know I don't have to talk to two people who survived the decision. How funny it was to laugh at the Miami Heat in that they, from a 10 seed, got the 8th seed and played their hearts out. Like, look at Heat culture. We don't just lose in the play-in, we win. And then we don't get our draft pick, and it ends up jumping and being the number 1 pick. City of losers. Okay. The fact that the Knicks were able to slay the Dragon around too early is similar to what happened in Minnesota. I come from the Jets world, right? Long time ago, the Jets made the playoffs, and they beat the New England Patriots in the divisional round.
The Sanchez, baby.
Literally, Mark Sanchez, 3 touchdowns. It's their last playoff win. It's their last trip to the playoffs, too. That was in 2011. But then the following week, they had already emptied the tank and had nothing for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think when you have a series, an emotional victory and a triumph like that, but you still have 2 playoff rounds to win, it messes with you. And I think the Knicks, especially when you add in how they lost game 1, just never recovered. And look, it's the bail I usually have thrown at Tibbs in trying to defend. Well, I didn't think he had a great series. I don't think he's the reason they lost the series. I think the players didn't execute in game 1, and they ran into a buzzsaw on the side of the Indiana Pacers, who, as we saw in the finals, were clearly like more closer to being a title winner than I think a lot of us recognize. And it's why
or OKC was less ready, and that's like the most depressing outcome. That It's almost like 2015, where I think the 2015 Warriors, if the Cavs were healthy, I think they lose that series. But I think the confidence of winning that series made them such a better team for 2016. And I'm worried that that's going to happen for OKC, that, you kind of miss that window before.
I'll worry about that when we get there.
Yeah, I want that opportunity.
Well, I'm just saying, like, when you're
I
looking
agree with the point, though. I agree with the analogy, though.
It's one of those things that's in the back of my mind. But, it's funny. I agree with Carter. Maybe we're just too plugged in terms of like Cavs discourse and stuff like that. But I do think, even though there are more valid excuses, right? Like the Knicks were relatively healthy for the conference finals. And one of the points I like to bring up is, despite the Cavs having all those injuries, their defensive rating against the Pacers was better than the Knicks, even though the Knicks have, the two best wing stoppers in the NBA in OG and Mikal Bridges. Like, there were so many injuries. Like Darius Garland, people question his toughness about playing. Turns out he might not play, at the start of the season because he had to get his toe basically reconstructed. Donovan Mitchell, calf strain. Evan Mobley, high ankle sprain, misses a game. DeAndre Hunter, breaks a bone in his shooting hand in game 1. Like, there were so many things that went wrong there that would be valid excuses that you would almost think it's more comforting. But the other side of that coin is, hey, we went through a regular season where, Donovan Mitchell had a career low in usage and minutes, and everybody's minutes were managed really well. And we still weren't able to stay healthy. And maybe it just was bad luck. But I do think that health aspect is honestly the biggest concern for Cavs fans. And for people that are like just flat out dismissing the injuries, I understand that in the wake of the series. Like, emotions are raw. I still think that there were things that they could have done to potentially win that series. But if you're still doing that now in September where you're ignoring that, you're nuts. Get over it. I understand it hurt in the moment, but let's take a step back and talk about that series for what it was.
Yeah. What's funny is it's like the inverse happened with the Knicks. And that's what I would say to a Cavs fan that is questioning the backbone and the blueprint. And like, you have a 60+ win team that ran a 10-man rotation, like you said, a lower uses from Mitchell, managed minutes throughout the regular season for pretty much everybody, got home court throughout, and then still like suffered injuries in the playoffs. Like, that happens. That's just what happens to some teams in the playoffs, and lost to the Pacers. Then you have a Knicks team that had 3 guys in the top 5 in minutes played. There was that great clip of Chris Vernon over in Memphis reading off the top 11 3-man combos in the NBA, and 8 of them are New York Knicks 3-man combos, because it was just Tibbs had 5 guys he was going to play more than anybody in the league. And it, like, I understood why he did it. They got us. They became teammates 2 minutes before training camp started. He was going to build their chemistry throughout the regular season, and that team, like, theoretically, the perfect team to break down is a Tom Thibodeau team that's played a ton of minutes all season. They didn't lose in the playoffs because of an injury. They were the most healthy they had been during this 5-year run, and they still lost to the Pacers. And it's why I would say to a Cavs fan that may question the blueprint, I'm saying this as a Knicks fan. The only team that I will accept losing to in the Eastern Conference this year is the Cleveland Cavaliers, because I do think they are good enough to beat the Knicks. And I would pick the Knicks to win that series, but part of that is because I have to, because of the hat I'm wearing. And I do think Knicks can beat the Cavs. I think they're very evenly matched going into this season. What the Pacers became during the playoffs, we just have to accept it. Sometimes it's somebody else's year, and it stinks to be a footnote in somebody else's story. Yeah. But this year, I truly believe it's going to be one of our teams that has that story. And
I hope so. You're right. It was an inverse situation, right? Like the Knicks won a crucial game with the last 2-minute call that went their way, and the Cavs collapsed against the Pacers. Obviously, they got screwed over with 2 blown lane violations.
That's true. Yeah.
That if any of them go the other way, they win that game. But you're right. I honestly feel the same way. I do feel like the Cavs have to make the finals. Like, I think I would understand losing the Knicks, but I think the expectation is, hey, this should be the best team in the Eastern Conference. If they're fully healthy, they should take a step forward. Evan Mobley should take a step forward. Where do you feel like the Knicks have an advantage, though, against the Cavs?
Well, so I don't believe that the Mitchell Robinson thing will go the exact same way. Yeah. I do believe you can still apply your will against their on the boards. If you, this is where Josh Hart becomes essential in a Cavs series, that if he's allowed to come in, get 10 plus rebounds from a wing spot, then you have Mitchell Robinson playing the most impactful 10 to 20 minutes possible. And you're not bleeding points from an offensive process because it's like one shot and done. And it's probably a Brunson isolation shot, which again is a very good shot because of how good he is. I think you can win the margins in that way. Like do you
think they would have to win by playing a little ugly?
A little, yeah. And I think this is the roster doesn't dictate them being an uglier team anymore, but they still do have guys that can.
I was super impressed by that in Boston. I felt like they were very comfortable, and obviously there were reasons why Boston was more rough upable than they might have been in years past. But like I saw Mikal Bridges play the most physical defense of his career in that series. So to your wider point, like, no, they don't have a bunch of guys who are like famous for being tough guys, except Mitchell Robinson, really, and now Yabusele. But like they flipped that switch in games that mattered. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, so that's where I wanted to go with like the Boston series in particular. Those first two games required from. I hate to say it, they required them falling down by 20 and then kind of rocking the Celtics to sleep. But
we talked about that in the regular season against Boston. Like we would do the same thing, right? Like because Boston, their process was so bad, they were prone to going up big and taking their foot off the gas. Like they were a team that could get caught, and I think that's why they blew so many leads last year.
I do think in a Cavs series in particular, though, and this is where you talking about them falling into some of their worst habits. If Mitchell Robinson is healthy and you're able to create a rim protection that matters, and you have a much more creative offense that it's not as easy for the Cavs to game plan against you, then I think you could take advantage of them in multiple ways, and like the Celtics series, maybe bait the other team into playing a specific way that isn't the way that they were succeeding against you. Like the Celtics, when they're moving the ball and they're using the extra pass to find the extra man or the open man, it's game over. It's how they built 2 20-point leads in the first two games. What the Knicks were able to do over the fourth quarters of game 1 and 2, and then really in game 4, which is the game I go to reject any of they only lost because Tatum got hurt. Because
that would drive me freaking crazy. By the way,
you
were destroying them in that
there's
series.
So many other reasons, right? Like Porzingis couldn't breathe, Drew Holiday was hurt, Brown had a torn meniscus. There was a lot of injuries that gave you guys the win.
There were a lot of injuries, and they also like stopped playing their best basketball. They stopped playing the way that they won their championship season.
But if I were a Knicks fan, I'd be so annoyed that people are just like writing
specifically
off
the
series.
Tatum injury. Like if you want to then bring up that.
They were already in position to win that game. Yeah.
They were up 9 when Tatum got hurt and with 3 minutes left. If the Knicks were going to run out, the funny part is that if I could say the Knicks are normally not going to blow a 9-point lead with 3 minutes left. And then they blew a 14-point lead against the Pacers with 3 minutes left. But I digress. I think there is a way that the Knicks can now not just try to beat you by again, I'm informing most of this by the Tibbs way. But his whole thing was the game will tell you what to do. And that's how they would always settle into a game. And it's like, okay, we're going to have to try and get back into a game we're trailing in by now take advantage of the little things. So the team has now taken their foot off the gas, and now we're charging through.
Yeah.
Now I think they can use that same mentality and maybe tell the game what to do throughout the course of this season. It's what I'm hoping they can
teams
do in
that
a
win,
Cavs
right?
series.
Like we've talked about that with the Cavs. Teams that win championships dictate the terms of engagement, right? And they dictate the style of play. We felt that the Cavs don't do that. And I think, to your point, I think your assessment's correct that if they can get the Cavs outside of what they typically do, that's going to be your best chance to beat them. I think Indy did that with their full court pressure. They slowed things down. Now, obviously, there were other factors involved in that. I think Donovan Mitchell being the lead initiator leads to some issues like, hey, Jared Allen has 22 points on 9 field goal attempts, but doesn't get any touches really in the second half, right? Like I think Donovan is a great secondary playmaker, but the team's at his best when Darius is initiating the offense. They weren't in a position to do that. But I do think that some of those habits were there in the regular season. And I think that's been the one consistent thread that when teams beat the Cavs or make series more difficult than they should be, as was the case against Orlando, I think they get them outside of their comfort zone and get them to play a brand of basketball that isn't Cavaliers basketball.
What's your inverse, Andrew? Like, what's the if that's the stuff you feel like the Knicks can do? What's like they're just gonna beat us over the head with this until we're a bloody pulp?
In lineups where I guess even when Mitchell Robinson is starting, you still have 2 holes on defense, and it's the thing that continues to worry me about. And like I feel like I've been significantly more critical of Tibbs than he deserves on this episode, because as frustrated as I was about how the season ended and how very clear it felt to me that it was time to move on, I don't think they're there or anywhere near this level of competence or contention without Tom Thibodeau. And a problem he was trying to fix all season is, how do I get a defense to not be a complete matador defense with Cat and Brunson sharing the floor at all times? And like literally from play 1 of the season, it was the Celtics bringing Cat into the action. He's in his drop coverage without his hands up, and Tatum rises and hits a 3. And it's one of the last plays that got him eliminated too against the Pacers. It was them, Turner bringing Cat into the action. Halliburton rises up, stretches the lead to 20. Oh, okay, the game's about to end. That is still an issue that they're going to have to overcome, and it's why you have to lean heavy into offense. But what if the other team is also getting everything they want? What if you're missing that night and you can't lean on a defense to potentially stop them because you've got 2 weak defenders on the other side? I will say, I think Brunson, he's not a good defender. I don't even think he's like an average defender. There are moments he goes through where it's like you're in the right spot, you're just short.
He draws charges.
Right. Like he's able to use his body, and like the term traffic cone gets used when describing a lot of weaker defenders. If he's a traffic cone, it's got cement inside of it. Like you're going to feel it when you try to go run over that traffic cone.
Yeah.
With Cat, it's very much a pick and roll defense that either you put him in drop and you could probably get a mid-range, but if you miss, he's going to average 13 rebounds throughout the regular season, which he did. Or if you have him play up at the level, you risk him and his happy hands potentially getting in foul trouble, and then you're without one of your best offensive players for most of the first or second half because he picked up 3 quick fouls, or he's got 5 fouls middle of the fourth quarter. So the inverse is that all the same stylistic issues that I think Tibbs couldn't solve on defense will still rear their ugly head come playoffs. And I think a team like the Cavs could take advantage of that. I dare say it out loud, but a team like the Atlanta Hawks could absolutely take advantage of that.
Is that your team, outside of the Cavs in the East, that you're somewhat worried about?
It's the one team that...
Some Trey scar tissue?
For us, it's the Orlando Magic, and even though we beat them, it's still Orlando, just because we feel they can potentially get the Cavs out of the rhythm, out of their style of play.
Right. So let me just get this on the record, on the Chase Down record first.
Okay.
Trae Young is 11-20 against the Knicks in his career. He does not own New York. He's not the king of Madison Square Garden. Every important thing that ever happened to him is because Julius Randle was the only good player on the 2021 Knicks, and they were a house of cards that just needed to be game planned against, and he took one card out, and it fell. And him shooting 42% over 5 games is not the reason that they lost that series. Having said that,
protest too much, says this unbiased observer.
It's amazing to hear a trauma rant on this podcast that's not coming from me. Proceed.
Listen,
that was the most Rowan-coded guest segment I've ever heard.
100%.
The amount of times that I've had to hear that he's the king of New York with like the 3 ever wins that he has in New York is just like you said, a bit triggering. My favorite nickname for him is Professor Playin. Like outside of that conference run, like what do you have to show for it? So once we start putting fans in attendance, like what do you have to show for your career, Trae Young? Having said that, I do think the Atlanta Hawks have surrounded him very competently this season, even more so that he's finally going to get to play with a stretch five.
Maybe
the thing. Well, okay, depending on what Porzingis is, he's the same questions that Mitchell Robinson has. I said this to a couple of Knicks fans at Summer League, and I think I provided them the same nightmares that I have. Because while I stand by everything I said about Trae Young, the thing that did happen in that series is the Knicks just had no answer for him in the pick and roll. And while I think the Knicks will, we've had a good conversation here, we're friends. I think the Knicks will get to the finals this year.
Okay.
The nightmare, the ceiling, the ceiling is great, but the nightmare, the floor of that is them being in the second round against the Atlanta Hawks, either as a 1 seed or a 2 seed, playing a 3 seed or a 4 seed. And they can't stop the pick and roll. The same thing that Halliburton did to them for 6 games over the last 2 seasons. Now Trae Young's doing it to them. And like Dyson Daniels is an outstanding option to guard Jalen Brunson. Reece Shea takes a leap. Jalen Johnson takes a leap. Like they have so many other options to now beat you. And it's the one team that would just create the most nightmare scenario. You lose in the second round instead. You lose a round earlier than the one that made you fire Tom Thibodeau. Like it's the entire blueprint nightmare scenario. Is that Trae Young now gets to say, like, then I'll have to just eat the crow. Okay, maybe you do kind of own the Knicks.
Then you're going to be like, okay, it might be true now, but it wasn't true before. And that
Listen,
matters.
when I did that Chase Down pod, it was still 11-20. It may be like whatever,
I've
15-22
again.
now.
It's like looking in a mirror right now. And you know what? I think you should have some level of confidence. I think the Knicks have shown at times that they can get the Cavs outside of, their comfort zone. And, from my standpoint, why I feel like if the Cavs are fully healthy, I think that this team's going to the finals is, we understand that, you're going to have some difficulties hiding Jalen Brunson against a Trae Young, right? And they're going to be able to pick on Cat in the pick and roll. The Cavs just have that ability in duplicate where, you have both Jared Allen and Evan Mobley that can attack like that. Evan Mobley, I think we're all or not all, because you're probably not hoping this, but we're hoping that he's going to be a top 10 player this upcoming season, that he's going to take another step forward offensively, and he's going to be able to attack one of the weakest points in your defense in Karl Anthony Towns. That you can't really hide Jalen Brunson on the 3 like you did with Isaac Okoro if it's DeAndre Hunter or even Max Strus, but especially DeAndre Hunter if we're looking at these first 2 matchups. And then, last year, even when Donovan Mitchell was out, Darius, playing through the toe injury, we now know he was playing through the toe injury, was able to cook Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. Like they just threw guys at him, and neither of them, like, I think OG's better suited to defend guards. I don't think Mikal does great against those kind of water bug guys. And, Darius shot 57% last season against OG, and he shot 59% against Bridges. Mitchell shot 50% against OG, who's someone he struggled against at times, 46% against Bridges. I just feel like there's not really spots to hide. And with one of the Knicks kind of, your primary concern being the Cavs, primary strength, I feel like that sets itself up really well for the Cavs. But it's also going to make it all the more frustrating if the Knicks are able to get them out of their style of play and get them away from, what is going to bear fruit against the Knicks in a matchup.
Well, so the other thing that you just hinted at, because like the shooting percentages in the 4 games,
it's very minor. I'm just saying an example.
Right.
There's a lot of noise there for sure.
It's why, like, if the Knicks, if for some reason Mobley shoots or Garland or whoever or Mitchell shoot poorly in those 3 games that they played this regular season, it's not going to let me think, oh, we own the Cavs. They're going to do that in the playoffs. I do see what you're saying, though, and it's why the Mobley point is a thing the Knicks don't have. Like, they don't have a guy that suddenly can take a leap and is a different player and is not something I'm accounting for right now. I'm judging the Cavs.
Some Tyler Kolek erasure.
I apologize, Pacome Dadier and Kevin McCullough Jr. and that's right. You even mentioned their best one, Muhammad Diawara, that many a Knicks fan has told me is the next Charles Oakley.
Okay.
Yeah. Physicality like Giannis too. Yeah, remember that name when he doesn't
small,
play
guys.
When he doesn't play a minute in the conference finals. The fact that they could show up to the February game or potentially a playoff series against the Cavs, and Evan Mobley is now an MVP candidate, not just a DPOY candidate, is like an unknown. It's a variable that the Cavs can potentially have. It's a better Evan Mobley. I do think as is, I agree with like the fact that the Cavs can take advantage of the Knicks' biggest weakness. I do still think these teams are much more evenly matched over the course of a 7-game series, though.
I bet the Knicks would be favored in a playoff.
Who has
series.
home court?
Justin?
Us.
I think we're
Can I
talking
just
even
say,
money.
I threw you off with the hand up. You've been throwing me up with a hand up the whole podcast because I keep thinking you're about to make a point, but it's like it's the wrap.
You're literally sitting here like this, like, excuse me, I got a point. I keep wondering, do I go?
Do I let him cook?
Yeah.
What do I do here?
Listen,
I think those
it's just
odds
the
are-
most comfortable way for me to hold my arm.
I get it, and I feel so sorry that you got hurt personally. I'll put my hand down so you don't think I'm making fun of you. I think those odds would be closer to even. We're talking like 115, 135 to start the series. Yeah. I think these teams are very evenly matched, which is why the only thing I could point to for these 3 regular season games mattering is home court. Like who wins 2 of 3 in case both teams end up with 58 wins at the end of the season.
Sorry, I'll hold my other hand up so you know when I really want that. I'll just look so attention grabby.
That broke me. That's really fun.
I did want to ask how much you care about home court advantage, because both teams are like, both of us have implied that we actually aren't that interested in the regular season in terms of giving us like actionable data. But what it does do is help you avoid a super physical Orlando Magic team in the second round and have home court in the conference finals. Do you care?
Well, so matchup dependent is a good point. Because you might play the Miami Heat again, or an 8 seed that has no business. That was a 10 seed and has no business being
the Indiana Pacers, maybe.
Well, so think back to 2 years ago where the Knicks were the 2 seed and had to play Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey in the first round, like a team like that. And so like the matchups potentially could be more advantageous if you're a 1 seed and you're not playing a team as good. I made this reference last year. There is another element to this, Carter, and it's if Game 7 is in Madison Square Garden, what way do you think the whistle might lean in a 7-game series?
I cannot believe we've got a big market
I'm just saying,
on here.
It was a question.
He is literally me
I
right
just want to know
now.
what
It
you
is
think
scary.
the NBA would want in a 7-game series.
This is
I say that,
unbecoming
and then the
of
last-
you
the
to
last-
own that.
Right now. This is awful.
As I said last year, I never want to hear about big market, small market bias again after Isaiah Hartenstein literally left New York for Oklahoma City. That big market bias does not exist.
What about that call that won you the game against Detroit?
Though.
That game, where was that game, though? In Detroit. So technically, that's a call that should go at Madison Square Garden, right? Look, there is... I want Game 7 in Madison Square Garden. That it should be for all the reasons that you want Game 7 in the queue. Like it's the exact same.
It's the
same
Rock
reasons.
now. Let the record show.
Is it really? Oh,
yes,
my
it's
bad.
Rocket Arena.
Oh, it's not. Oh, wow. I'm way behind.
You're 2 names back.
Quicken Loans,
really?
I
It's not the
believe it.
queue?
I don't want to.
Rocket Money was a sponsor. I need to know that.
Well,
Okay.
here's what you got to know is that I'm pretty sure Quicken Loans itself is now just Rocket.
It's just a
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't even think
Well,
Quicken Loans exists as a brand anymore.
This is where I am lucky to just be in one building my entire life called Madison Square Garden, not presented
it's
by
pretty cool.
Quiznos or Wingstop or anything.
I love the idea that Quiznos was the first one.
I'm now going
Not
to go
even
with
Jersey Mike's.
Well, okay.
Look at
What's
us.
annoying is I should have called it Subway. Like Subway would sponsor something. In
Quiznos
New
is
York
funnier,
City.
though.
Quiznos is
funnier.
the funniest.
For all the
Oh,
reasons you want home court or the most important game of your season to be at home, you want.
I agree. I want home court too. I want this to be a rivalry. I'm excited. I'm excited that we're the two teams standing right now. I'm hopeful that this can be a rivalry moving forward. I am concerned about the stakes, though, because if either of these teams come up short, there's no guarantee that they are going to exist in its current form anyway. So, that is one of the kind of key ingredients for a rivalry. But, you're a key ingredient too, buddy. We get to talk to someone that we love talking to about a team that we hate. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Let the people know where they can find your work before we let you out of here, because we've gone way too long.
Well, so I have a question before I go, but
Okay.
I will find everything I do over at Knicks Film School. Again, we're counting down the top 25 Knicks of the last 25 seasons. iTunes,
You guys know where to find
Spotify.
podcasts. You found this podcast. Go find Knicks Film School there.
On
What's your
YouTube,
question?
we're about to cross 40,000 subs. So shout out to us and all the work we're doing over there. The team we hate but people we like. I don't think that Knicks fans hate the Cavs. Not yet, at least.
To be
Well,
honest,
you don't hate
really
someone.
hate you guys.
Yeah,
Right,
I don't really hate you guys yet either.
Okay.
It's
I
unfortunate.
kind of do, but actually, I don't know, because I was rooting for you against Boston, so
I was
and
too.
I was rooting for you against Indy. So I don't know,
was too.
maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think I hate
I
you
would've
guys
rooted
yet.
for
But
the Cavs
it sounds good.
against-
I feel like
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to be very easy to hate you at some point. So I'm just like,
I hated you
post-dating some
2 years
checks here.
or 3 years ago. That's for damn
Well,
sure.
we played each other.
Yeah.
It
So
sucked.
maybe that I think is what will bring up the rivalry. And
Yeah.
whereas last year, I said this 2 years ago, I think it should be common knowledge at this point. I despise the city of Philadelphia and everybody that exists in it. But 2 years ago, when they played the Sixers, I had no Sixers animosity. Then 3 games of Joel Embiid potentially ending Mitchell Robinson's life. And I wanted blood by the end of the series. And it's what
I feel like
about,
that against regular season games against Joel Embiid. So
right there
I
with
get it.
you.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
calling Bam Adebayo a dirty player for most of his career, and now I know what a dirty player looks like, and I can just enjoy. Like, oh, Bam, you're great on defense, Bam Adebayo. I respect the way you play, a little bit more aggressive.
Good,
You're not trying
fundamentally
to
sound.
injure the other team's best centers or good players. I wonder if we get there with like a knockdown, drag out 7-round matchup in the playoffs. It's what I'm rooting for, because it means there'll be a lot of Knicks Film School chase down crossovers over the course of those 7 games for sure.
I'm rooting for 5 or 6. That's a little easier on me. But
You really
thank
want the
so-
Cavs to lose in 5 or 6?
Oh yeah. I can't believe I'm going to let you get out here on that line, but I am.
Love you
Thank
guys.
you
Thank
so
you for
much,
having me.
Andrew. I appreciate you having us on. I appreciate everyone hanging out live on the YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. Click that notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chasedown's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the video to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.